Troy, appreciate you joining, my man. I'm really excited for this conversation. We've been working together for the past few months now. But before we get started, tell us a little bit about who you are, what company you work with, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Yeah, so Troy Cook, I'm the Senior Director of Sales at Dynamic Logistics. So we're a technology focused 3PL provider. Basically, we work with companies in the manufacturing space, helping them to ship their products more efficiently, drive down costs, increase some of their efficiencies through our technology and the services that we provide.
Nice. And how did you hear about Phone Ready Leads?
Oh, that's interesting. I actually think what's crazy is like I feel like a year ago I saw, there's all the LinkedIn gurus and someone had mentioned the your product and I actually went to the website and then I was like, nah, there's these claims are a little too crazy. So I was like, I'm out. And then someone that works with you. So I think we connected over LinkedIn and we started a quick conversation and reached out to me. I picked up, I always for sales karma, I always take sales calls. So I just had a conversation and again, he was like, hey, this is what we do. We're going to help increase your connect rate. And so I was like, I gotta try this out. So I threw a little down for a trial and, about, I guess maybe a couple minutes after we got our P1s back, gave it to my BDRs, and 10 minutes later, they were like, I need more P1s, man. This is crazy.
It's fantastic. So we always see it's a great point. I'm glad you shared that beginning story with us, but we always see hesitations or doubt or the skepticism on the intro calls that we have with individuals. And you had that even when we were talking with us. I remember obviously the
Yeah.
intro call with you, but you also just said you went to the website and saw some claims and said no way. So what were some of like the top concerns or hesitations that you had when kind of looking and thinking about the product or service we offer?
Yeah. So, it's probably not, that much different than even some of the clients that we work with. For me, and I try to stress this to the people I talk to in the sales processes, like at the end of the day, I'm the one that's ultimately held accountable for whatever I do. So when I go to my CEO and I say, hey, we need to invest X amount of dollars into this thing, like they're not going to go to the account executive that sold me the product and ask why it didn't perform. They're going to come to me and say, hey, how come this initiative you had failed? Or, and if you fail too many times, right, then, obviously that's going to, cost you your position or, something. So, for me, that's always my hesitation is one, do you really understand my business and is what you're saying applicable to what I do? Right. That's the first thing. Then the next thing is like, if I were to do this and actually, get these improvements, is it actually going to drive the results, that I want? Because like right now, especially in this climate, while we're still going to invest in things that make sense, we don't really have a lot of time to invest in just like vanity projects, things that aren't going to really move the needle for us. Right. So if it's not going to drive the key things that lead to revenue, it's just not really something I'm interested in putting a lot of, effort behind.
Yeah, perfect. And you may have already kind of prefaced this a little bit, but was when would you say like the first thing that you experienced, or when did you realize it was actually a good decision that you had made, or like this was the right choice?
So there are a couple of kind of moments of like aha moments or moments of truth. So it's pretty funny. The first one was, and I think this is like a great lesson for salespeople is if you remember when you guys said, okay, so first we're going to start calling these just so you know that they're legit. And I was like, dude, don't worry. I got people that can call them. You don't have to. Like, I was like, come on, let's just like, give me the list. Let me do my thing. And you guys were like adamant. Actually, you were like, no, you have to let us call these because if you don't get the same results, it's going to be something else. And you were talking to me about how, like spam likely, things like that. Like it could be something with our phone system. So, and then I was just shocked when I think you guys made 5 calls and like 4 out of the 5 calls somebody picked up. And I was like, oh snap. Like I know, like even when I started this job, like for the first several months, I basically just walked in the shoes of an AE. So I was like, I sat there and knew that it could take me days to get, five really good conversations going. So that was the first moment where I was like, all right, like, okay, this is, again, you might have just pulled the best five. Heck, you might have been calling like your cousins or something for all I know, right? But um, but I was like, all right, that definitely passed the smell test. Then the next thing is I took the list, put it back into our outreach, had my BDRs call, and then just, when I, implement any technology, it's like what I really want is for people to talk about like how it's improved how they do their job. Because ultimately, like that's my job as the sales leader here is like I'm trying to just get my salespeople paid as much as I can, like make their life easier, like allow them to do their job better. So the fact that they did that and like after like like I said 10-15 minutes they were like, dude, this is crazy, this is like I haven't had 15 minutes of this type of productivity since I've been here, just in terms of pickup. So that was definitely something. Anyway, so then we just ran through it, and then I took the data and I just did off of like the first batch, I kind of just did a kind of like an A/B comparison, and it was still like, like the results were pretty significant in terms of the difference, right? So just, there's a lot of like areas where I kind of and a healthy skeptic just kind of fact checked it and was like, yeah, all those numbers like panned out, and I saw it. And I think the other thing that's super critical is just how quickly I could get results. Like we're not talking about implementing a whole new sales process where it takes like a year before you truly see the lift. It was something where within a week, you could have that lift. And actually, one of our we're enterprise sales, they take a significant amount of time. And like our fastest deal we closed this year was, one of those P1s. And not to like go on to a tangent, but like, I think the thing that's like was important for me is that person was sitting there in our database. It's just when you have thousands of people you can reach out to, it's the timeliness of it. It's like not knowing when the right time is to reach out to them. So then you just look at everything and they're all rated the same. So, to me, like the long-term benefit is just, being able to be at the right place at the right time. So
Yeah, and that's a powerful story. I know you did like a pretty deep analysis with me on one of our weekly check-ins that we had, but there was also some data from the pilot list that you've ran, right? We've ran several lists at this stage now, but there was some data at the initial pilot list that you ran that had gone through, I forget your sequence setup, but it was in uncontacted,
yep.
and we scored it, put it back into your system. Can you harp on that a little bit, kind of your experience
Yeah.
around?
So that's okay. So yeah, that was the one that's thing I was saying. So, when these people, they go through their sequences and they make it all the way through the sequence and you don't get any type of response or reaction to them, like they're going to go to unresponsive. And then, at the end of the day, it's like ultimately in the perfect world, you're going to want, people are going to look at that, do some research, try to figure out when they're going to re-engage that person. But it's kind of a crapshoot. You don't really know when you need to re-engage with them. It's hard to tell when's the right time. So as a company, I always look at it as like, man, I'm really just, there's a part of that that's just luck. It's just, did you actually find that thing that gave you no indication that they're the right person, that you should be reaching out to them? And did you just happen to find them at the right place, right time, right? Like how many salespeople are just like, all I'm hoping is when I reach out to someone, they're thinking, hey, I was just talking about something like this, right? So yeah, that one had been sitting there, and it had gone through a sequence, and it was sitting there for like 4 months in between contacts. But yeah, threw him back in there and got him. And the kind of interesting thing is as through in the middle of the sales process, he ended up leaving, and we ended up getting, going up the chain. But in reality, if we had just waited like 2 months longer to try to engage with them, like we wouldn't have probably won the deal, at least this year, right? So it's the timeliness is just, especially right now in this how things are today, it's like you just want to be able to strike, when you can, and you don't really have a lot of chances to misfire. So that was definitely something that was eye-opening.
Yeah, so speed to service, right? Speed to productivity, speed to outcome, like you've touched on
Mm-hmm.
all of that. A lot of the stuff you're mentioning around the sales world, it's rebuilding the tech stack, it's redesigning everything, retraining. Sometimes it takes 6, 12 months to realize, actual, ROI on productivity, ROI on investment. Did you think achieving something like this in this time frame was possible before working with us?
I thought it's interesting because I thought that if the numbers like panned out, like in terms of the connect rates could increase as dramatically as you said, then my theory was, hey, everything that follows through that should actually, I feel like there should be an uplift. But, at the same time, it's like when you've done this as long as I have and you've never really had anything that would tell you who's the people that you could or should, like engage with, it was just more around the lines of like, how can you, like, how can you get information like that? So like for me, like I had spent so much of my energy just over my career and even here is like optimizing the right message to unlock someone's willingness to talk with you. Like that's what we put a lot of focus on is like, do we have the right email? Is it the right link? Are we hitting the right keywords? Are we doing all of these things to then pique their interest to where you can talk with them? Whereas this is like, it kind of reverses that. It's like, it's less about that. And it's more along the lines of like, if you can just do something that's going to get you an increase in your conversations, well, that's how you're going to, get a quicker, path to a win. And so that's like a different way. But at the end of the day, it's like, there's just never were any tools that would, deliver those type of results.
Yeah. So with all your perspectives now, right, your pre-perspective and post-perspective now, what would you say to someone that's on the fence for, signing up?
So I would say if somebody was on the fence for signing up, I would say number one, you should understand that like if you can within a week, you can actually see results. So it's like it's worth it to figure to actually see if you can get the results. Like it's worth that type of an investment to then be able to quickly determine, does this work for your business? Like that's the first thing. The second thing is like, most salespeople, they know their numbers, but the problem is like in our life, like we spent so much time just looking at these numbers and really trying to almost like increase things by very small percentages. It's like, you'll want to invest, you might invest $2,000 to have somebody come in and teach your team how to negotiate. But in reality, if you just negotiate a little bit better, you're probably going to win just a few 2-3% lift in terms of closing deals. But if you can do things that can inject higher volume on the top of the funnel, like it's going to follow through. So like in my mind, it's like that investment is actually like a really easy, simple decision just from a cost of an ROI, right? So I think if you really kind of look at your numbers and you can impact the connect rate, like I think you're actually going to be able to create a greater lift at the end. So it's a very I think compelling business case.
Yeah. Anything you think we can improve on?
Well, this Justin guy, they really got rid of this dude. No, I'm just kidding. You can take that out. I would probably, it's funny. I will say one thing that you can improve on probably, and it's in a way it actually made it easier to work with you. But in the other way, in the beginning, it was really hard because like I'm so used to like these like very clean proposals that are like very like, put in these fancy documents that like where everything looks good. But you guys are like, whip out the Excel spreadsheet, like start putting numbers in. So it was like it was kind of interesting because it was like that approach in the beginning was like hard to, because I was even like, help me, I got to figure out how I'm going to be able to like look at all this information. But then, ultimately, as we started working together, it actually, having a lot of that stuff like out and just like having it in black and white ended up making it easier to work with y'all and to work through the processes. But yeah, it was that was probably the thing in the beginning where, because I'm like, man, I want to invest this, but man, they're just shooting me like a spreadsheet here. I don't know if that's going to work. So I don't know.
Cool.
You can
Yeah.
keep that or take that out if you want. I don't really care.
No, it's good. That's great. Any other like comments or feedback for the team?
No, I mean, well, for me, here's the thing I love about working with you and then and your other partner when we had started this is like I talked to a lot of sellers that sell tech stacks, but they almost sell it like they don't work in sales. Whereas every time I talk to you all, it's like you understood sales and the operational part of sales and just all of it, like, and your expertise really kind of shone through in our conversations, which to me is like really important because it's kind of hard to solve my problem if you don't really understand it. And I think a lot of times when I talk with other people that are selling like tech stack products, things for salespeople, it's like sometimes there's just a lack of really understanding like what it's like to be in a seller's seat, but they're salespeople. So I think for me, it's like, I think that's one thing that I've loved about just all of our interactions and kind of working with y'all is, when we're talking through this, it's like I feel like you guys, you get it. And because of that, it makes me even more, confident that as we continue to grow, that we're going to be able to drive more results. So
It's awesome, man. I appreciate it. Really appreciate your time today. Super important. It's been a lot of fun, and yeah, looking forward to developing and growing the relationship as well. Yeah.
cool. All right,
Awesome.
man. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Cheers.